All right, guys, welcome back to the Elevate My KBB podcast. I'm Jacob Iwowo, and this podcast is all about giving you guys practical sales and marketing insights to help you grow and scale your home improvement company. So you're either using your calendar right now to be able to drive revenue, or the other option is that you're letting it drift and just kind of, hoping that the sales follow, right? So this episode isn't about your leads. It's, isn't about emotional urgency. It's not even about kind of customer behavior in of itself. Today, we're going to be talking about how you operate the sales systems that, generate these deals behind the scenes. And what we're going to be doing is digging into why managing your calendar like a sales pipeline, not just some sort of a scheduling tool, is going to unlock back-end revenue without you having to touch your marketing budget, right? So your calendar as kind of a tool isn't just used to record appointments. The way that we look at it is that your calendar is a live sales pipeline that controls your back-end cash flow. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly why and how you should treat it like that. So in terms of your open slots, right, however you guys break down your calendar, think of every single open slot like they would in a inventory, right? If it's not filled, it's unsold, and it's kind of sitting in this warehouse and it needs to be filled. And if it's not filled, you're not making any money. And because you own the space, right, it's going to be costing you money and it's going to be costing you opportunity, right? Whether you realize it or not. If a warehouse has 100 spaces it can fill and it only fills 78 of them, the remaining 22, it's not costing them money because maybe they're net positive, they're profiting on their overall rent for the space. But in reality, it is costing them money because it's an empty space that they could have been filling and it could be making them money, right? So at the end of the day, in your case, inventory, sitting on the shelves, they don't just represent lost sales. It is wasted overhead, right? When your sales reps have an hour of time that they're not doing anything, you're still paying them. The same way that the warehouse is paying for the rent, you're still paying your sales rep. And, it's the exact same with your calendar. At the end of the day, it's going to be eating into your team's bandwidth and your marketing ROI if you don't have those things filled, right? Now, a fully, intentionally booked calendar doesn't just look good. That's not the purpose of it, right? What it does is it keeps your revenue machine moving consistently from week to week, right? Because if you have tight appointment management and you're able to fill these slots consistently, what that means is that you're going to have consistent demo flow, right? Your reps are going to be able to have full calendars and they're consistently demoing. They're going to have consistent closes because, ideally their close rate is going to be consistent because they have a system that makes sense. And it's going to mean that you're going to have smoother installs and cash collection because you're going to have the same amount of jobs every single month and your team's going to be able to run into a rhythm, right? So what it's going to do is it's not just going to stabilize your top line revenue. It's going to stabilize your payroll. It's going to stabilize your material ordering, even your financing cycles as a company, right? If you know exactly what's going to be coming when, everything becomes easier, right? And that's why handling your calendar is so important. Now, with that being said, most companies don't notice that they're bleeding, revenue because it doesn't show up on their P&L sheet, right? As we spoke about, if you have that warehouse, those 22 slots that we spoke about that are open, the company is still net positive on the warehouse. So yeah, it's not going to show up on their P&L that they're losing money, but every open slot is a silent revenue leak, whether you like it or not. Because if you don't have a demo, you don't have a sale. And if, let's say, you have those late stage reschedules for your reps, at the end of the day, it's going to drain them. It's going to drain the setter. It's going to drain the closer. And, every random passive booking slows the sales cycle and increases your customers' cancellation rate. So handling how you're booking them into the calendar is also very, very important as well, right? Because the number of leads that you generate is irrelevant if your calendar isn't structured to actually monetize them effectively, right? You could be booking 100 bookings a month, but they're all booked up for 2 weeks in advance. They cancel at 60% rate and you're only seeing 40 of them, right? And if you have passive calendar management, then you're going to be passive as a company. And unfortunately, passive companies don't scale, right? So how do you actually fix this? Well, visibility means control, and control means profitability. That's what we always say. Again, I'll say it again. Visibility means control, and control means profitability. And if you, at the end of the day, as a company, your reps, your managers, they can't manage what they can't see. So in this instance, if your setters can't see when there are open slots, then they're not going to be able to sell them, right? So one of the simplest tools that still work to this day incredibly well is simply just having a giant whiteboard in your call center, in your office, that shows today's and tomorrow's available slots, and you update that whiteboard in real time, right? Because if those slots are visible at a glance, then now when they're on the phone, people can make fast adjustments, they can get faster booking momentum, right? Which means booking them into the calendar quicker, which means that the sales reps are able to take advantage of the emotional urgency that the people who are looking for you to come out have. And when the sales reps and the setters can physically see the gaps, what that does is it creates urgency for them to fill them without you having to constantly remind them, hey, what's going on with today's bookings? It's there, they can see it, right? Now, if you guys are working virtually or you have multiple teams and, a whiteboard isn't going to work, then a live Google Sheet does the exact same thing. And you update it every morning, keeping everybody locked into the same daily priority list, right? So what you're going to want to have, you're going to want to have columns by date, by time, and by, sales rep availability, right? And for us, what we like to do is just color code them, open versus filled. The green means it's filled, and the red is an urgent gap that needs to be filled, right? And then everybody on, the sales side is going to check it first thing in the morning, and it becomes a part of their daily rhythm. So that when they're making calls, when they're fielding calls, they know exactly what times they should be trying to work into their scripts, into their calls to try and get filled, right? And then, if you want to have, truly real-time speed, and, let's say you're a bit of a bigger company and you need things to be a little bit quicker, then I would recommend having either a WhatsApp or a Slack thread and, posting those urgent gaps sorted by rep and by region every single day. So a sales manager can kind of post daily targets. They can say, look, we have 3 gaps open in, our Northern Territory. Let's get that filled by 3:00, right? And then the setters know exactly where to push, when they have that kind of flexible lead that has a couple of slots available, and it turns that kind of calendar management into, a bit of a team sport, a bit of a, active, conscious effort rather than just a passive waiting game of, let me take a look, we can fit you in here, right? So remember, if your team aren't able to see the gaps, right, they can't sell into them. Right. And if they can't sell into those gaps, then your revenue is naturally just going to be bottlenecked before the appointment even happens because you're going to miss those slots. Right. So for us, we have a couple of, different ways that we like to manage that sales pipeline. The first one is that every single day starts by locking in today's and tomorrow's openings first before anything else. Right. So the first move every morning isn't to kind of chase random leads. It's to try our best to lock down the open slots, the empty slots that we have today and tomorrow. Because if those slots aren't open, then we're risking wasting an opportunity, right? So if we have a setter that sees a live lead and an empty slot, then, ideally those get connected immediately, right? We've got a rep, he's available, we've got a lead. They can take the call right now. Let's get that sorted. And we want to try and fill our calendars from the front to the back, not the other way around, right? The next strategy that we want to implement is that midway through the day, we want to review those tomorrow and today's slots again and take action if those open spots are still available, right? So if you still have those slots for today or tomorrow, halfway through the day, then that's when the red flag kind of starts to get waved, right? And someone should be on the phone right away to see if maybe we can pull a lead up, we can move them forward, right? We can let them know, hey, we've got the rep in the area. Can they come over, right? And Or if we can't kind of get that rep, or sorry, that lead that had a bit of flexibility to be pulled up, maybe we, go to our CRM and we see, hey, do we have any uncontacted leads? Do we have any old leads that we can message, and we can offer them an opportunity for today's opening, right? Because at the end of the day, your calendar shouldn't be static, right? It's supposed to be dynamic. And if your team is managing it actively, then you're not just kind of waiting for those cancellations to pile up. You're going to be able to move things around and be flexible and think about different ways to be able to get all of those slots filled. Because again, if your NSLI, your net sale per lead issued, is $3,000, every time a slot isn't filled, it costs you guys $3,000, no matter how you want to swing it, right? The third way that we like to manage our calendars is that it's important that we build a mentality of a culture around today, tomorrow, next, right? So you need to teach your team that when you're booking appointments, they want to kind of go through a three-stage kind of framework. First, they're going to try and see if they can get in today. It doesn't necessarily mean pushing for today or letting them know, hey, can we get in today? Mentally just being aware that today comes first. If not today, then tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, the next day, right? Every single lead should go through that same filter. And only if there are no good options within that, we then schedule them out for further. And that's, far from ideal, but if we have to do that, we have to do that. But that framework, we need to go through that, right? And look, what we're doing in that situation is we're not forcing bad fits. We're not, forcing people to take meetings at times where they're going to cancel because it didn't actually work for them. What we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize that emotional momentum. When those people call, when we reach out to those people, there is a form of emotional pain that they're in that makes them want to get a booking. So the quicker that we can get them there, the better that we'll be able to take advantage of that emotional momentum. And what this does is the mindset of today, tomorrow, next protects the kind of fast or, the quick openings first, because as we spoke about, those close rates are going to be strongest the quicker that we can get them booked in. And what it's going to do is it's going to build a daily booking discipline, instead of a reactive scheduling kind of mentality, because we are the ones that are trying to dictate, where we can get people fixed in and pulling leads up and trying to be proactive about how we do it, rather than last minute knowing that we have an open slot and not really knowing what to do, right? So for me, managing your calendar is very much like a live sales system. And it doesn't just kind of boost your sales. What it's going to do, if you do it correctly, it's going to stabilize your entire back-end performance across the board, right? So when you treat your calendar like this kind of true revenue pipeline, everything behind the scenes is going to get easier, smoother, and more profitable as well, without having to spend more money on leads. And what I mean by that is that when the appointments are booked fast and they're properly managed, your demo rates are going to go up because they're actually going to happen. And that means that your pipeline is going to become more predictable from a weekly cash flow basis, right? So this doesn't, necessarily mean that demo rates are going to be higher annually. They're just going to be more stable from a week to week basis, right? We're not going to have weeks where we're getting tons and tons and tons of shows, and then a few weeks down the line, we're having terrible demo rates, right? We have a more consistent basis. And what that means is that your sales managers are going to be able to forecast those installs more accurately. Your marketing ROI becomes easier to measure because the flow is stable. Your sales reps, are going to be mentally more prepared for, when people are going to cancel, when they're not, and kind of get more into a flow, right? On top of that, kind of on the topic of reps, when a closer actually trusts the calendar as real, they're going to show up sharper, right? Because ultimately they're going to prep a little bit better knowing that appointment's going to take place, right? So what that means is that when the calendar trust goes up, it's going to naturally result in less burnout and frustration, right? For any of you guys that, especially if you're in, management roles, at some point you may have been a sales rep yourself, you may have been in the house selling, how annoying it is when, the worst is when you're already on the way to a house and you get a call saying that call is cancelled, right? That meeting is cancelled. And with that being said, if your team trusts the way that the calendar is run and you have a consistent way of doing it, then what they're going to do is they're going to give you less pushback when you make booking decisions, right? When you push a lead, when you move a lead upwards and you fill up that slot, again, they know the system, they know that these people show, and they're going to be, you know, a lot less frustrated about the dynamic nature of their calendar, because that's what's going to, you know, come as part of that, right? And then also, team morale as a whole is going to go up, because every demo that they go to is going to feel like they have a real shot. They've been booked in properly. They've got every slot filled, right? And they know that they've got this constant pipeline of deals, which gives them confidence going into every single call, right? And then finally, you know, every reschedule and every no-show, as well as, you know, every cold appointment that your reps have to show up to, is going to be burning CRM resources. It's going to be burning payroll hours, and it's going to be burning sales energy, right? So what a tight calendar does is it cuts waste across the company very hard, right? Your admin team is going to be spending less time with flaky leads. If they're booked in and they're booked in quickly, they're not having to do follow-up over the next week to try and keep these people warm, because they're either booked in today, tomorrow, or the next day, ideally. Your setters and closers are going to be, you know, wasting fewer dials. You're going to be wasting fewer drive outs for people that either, you know, don't have, you know, two legs at the appointment, or, you know, just no show entirely. And at the end of the day, your managers are going to be able to focus more on the things that matter, rather than having to put out fires when they come up, right? So at the end of the day, if you guys, you know, as a company, or just no matter who you are, it's very, very difficult to scale when there's tons of chaos going on, right? And if your back-end calendar is loose, then scaling your marketing and, you know, scaling your ad spend, all it's going to do in a chaos situation is just scale the problems that you have. I've always spoken about the fact that ads are like, you know, putting oil to the fire. All it's going to do is make the fire bigger. And if you have a fire that, for example, smells really bad, it's just going to smell worse, right? But on the flip side, if your calendar is tight, every single dollar that you spend on your lead generation is going to go further, and those ad spend increases are going to hit harder, because you've got that system that works, right? A better close rate means that you're going to have a lower cost per sale. You're going to have more margins per install without having to kind of put pressure on your team. And you're going to have that kind of systematic, stable growth that the companies that you envy have, rather than this kind of frantic, all over the place growth where you kind of feel like you're on a ball and you're hanging on just about, you know, trying to ride this wave as you scale a company, right? So for you guys who feel like this might be relevant to you, and kind of you're thinking that, hey, you know, my calendar could be a little bit more tight, what I want you to do is audit how your calendar is being managed today, right? And once you do that, ask yourself, you know, is this just a pipeline that's, you know, is this a pipeline that's being actively managed, right, and actively filled? Or are you guys kind of passively scheduling things, you know, and you know, kind of jamming, you know, the slots with random names whenever possible, right? Because if you're the latter, when you start treating your calendar like it's that live sales engine as we spoke about, you're not just going to close faster, but the entire process of scaling your business is going to become smoother, right? So guys, if you found this episode helpful, make sure you follow the show. Every week I'm going to be kind of breaking down different operational moves that you can, you know, implement to be able to, you know, quietly and smoothly build real growth within your company, and send this to your call center manager or anybody else who might be in charge of running your calendar to see if this, you know, will hit and make sense to them as well. All right, guys, cheers.